Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Bharate Kamarupini Vidyarambham Kadishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Welcome to this little tutorial that I'm making. In our last class on April 30th, we were talking about Shashti Vibhakti, sixth case. And in the sixth case, we were declining Rama Shabda. So let's look at that on the screen here. So you'll see on sixth case, you can repeat after me, Ramasya, Ramayoho, and Ramanam. Again, Ramasya, Ramayoho, and Ramanam. Now, one particular feature of this you can see, so first of all, sorry, before that, before the particular feature, let's look at, so in 6.1, you can see we add Sya to Rama, and it becomes Ramasya. We add Yoho in 6.2, and it becomes Rama Yoho. And in 6.3, the last letter is elongated, so it becomes Rama. And we add Nam, dental Nam. But notice here in 6.3, the particular feature is that Nakada became Murdanya Nakada. The Nakada changed. Now, we were looking at a specific rule behind that, and in that, I was trying to avoid talking about it because it was very complex, but then I made mistakes because I was trying to shorten it. And anyways, let me talk about it elaborately so we can be clear about it. Something called Murdanya, that natvam can take place, natvam. So let's look at that rule. I'll pull it up in the Sandhi book. So in the Sandhi book, you can find this in the table of contents. You'll see something called natvam right here at the top. Okay, natvam. Now natvam is when a nakara, you see this nakara here, is the substitute for dental nakara when that nakara is immediately preceded by a ra or sha in the same word. Okay, so let me say that again a little bit easier. When you have in the same word a ra or sha, again, look at that shakara, ra or shakara, which is immediately preceding a nakara, dental nakara, that nakara will get placed by Murdanya nakara. Okay, so this is called Sandhi rule. Sandhi rule is when a phonetical change takes place. Now the phonetical change here is that dental nakara gets replaced by Murdanya nakara. Now I wish it was this simple. We don't often get that ra or sha immediately preceding the nakara. So Panini Muni gave a follow-up sutra. Okay, the sutra is here. Let me pull it upwards. So this is a modification to the rule. Okay, so yes, when ra or sha immediately precedes nakara, it will get replaced. But even when it takes place, even when that ra or sha, you see here, is intervened by any of these three things. So when ra or sha and nakara are intervened by any of these things, then that rule can still take place. That na will still get replaced by the nakara. Okay. Basically, ra or sha and you have nakara, and when all these other people come in the middle, it's still this rule will take place, right? Even though they join the party, still this rule takes place. Okay. So now we got to figure out what did all of these little things mean. So let me pull up the Sandhi book and I can show you. Okay, so the first thing you see on the screen, you'll see it in a moment, is that right on the screen, you see the first thing we see is at. Now, what is at? Okay, now what is at? At. Okay, so for that, let's switch over to the Sandhi book. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm looking for the Maheshwara Sutrani. The Maheshwara Sutrani, and we'll learn about this in a little bit. But we need to look at the first letter, akara, and the last letter, takara, right? Ta, at. So we find that the first letter is here, and the last letter is here, takara. And that last letter is not included in this. So at, when we say at, it stands for all of these letters that I've highlighted, from a to ta, not including ta. And not including these ones are circled, okay? It doesn't include the ones that are circled. So at stands for a, I, u, r, l, a, o, I, ow, basically all the vowels. And it stands for ha, ya, va, and rakara. Okay, ha, ya, va, ra. So the semivowels except for, so ha and the semivowels except for la. All right, so what I want to write is, let me go back to the other screen. At is all vowels plus ha, ya, va, and ra. All vowels plus ha, ya, va, ra is all part of at. So all vowels and basically the semivowels except for la. Ku. Now you see the next thing here is ku. Ku. Now what is ku mean? Ku stands for kavarga. Now let's look at kavarga. Okay, so kavarga, if you look at the alphabet chart in the beginning of the Sandhi book, this is on page 2 for me. It might be slightly different page for you. Ka stands for, that ku stands for all the ones that are in the same row as ka. Ka. Okay, so when I say ku, it stands for all the ones in that same row as ka. So ku stands for ka, ka, ga, gha, and nga. Okay, that's all included in ku. When I say ku, it stands for these 5. Ka, ka, ga, gha, na. Okay, let's go back. Let's stop this 1 second. So let's write it in here. Ka, ka. Let's see if I can make that nasalized. There we go. Okay, so let's add that in there. It stands for kakagagana. Having some technical difficulties here. All right, so let's get that in there. Okay, kakagagana. The next is pu. Now, pu is similar to ku. It stands for all that was in the row of pakara. Okay, so let's look at where do you see pakara on the screen here? Yep, you see it all the way in the labial section, oshto. So the labials, you see pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. So pu stands for these five. Pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. So let's go back. Let's write that in there. Pa, pa, ba, ba, and ma. Okay, let me just fix this here. This should be without the vowel at the end. We always need that virama, so I'm just fixing that. Okay. So we saw at stands for all vowels plus hayavara. Ku stands for kaka gaga nga. Pu stands for pa pa ba ba ma. And you see the next one is ang. Ang is an upasarga. Ang is, you see in the list of upasargas, you see a. A is the same as ang. Okay, so when you have a in the middle of rasha and na, then this rule still takes place. The last thing is num. Num is a type of augment that gets added, and we're not going to go into that now because that's not going to be commonly seen for us at this point in time. So the main things we need to know is at ku pu. At ku pu. Okay, now how I remember this is at ku pu, and we're talking about na, right? We're talking about nakara, so I think of nut kupu. Okay, so nut, somehow that this all comes, that's how I memorize this, is that at kupu, when we think of na, and then we add it together, nut. And so nuts. Okay, this is all a little bit nuts. Okay, at kupu. All right, so now let's do some practice with this a little bit. Let me close some of these things. Oh, okay, one last rule as part of this is it says padantasya na. Okay, so it's not in Sanskrit. Let me read it in English. The change of nakara should not happen at the end of a pada. So what that means is when that nakara, that dental nakara, is at the end of a word, this rule should not take place. Okay, so if I have nakara at the end of a pada, this should not take place. This na should not, even if rasha immediately precedes it, even if there's rasha and atkupu, if that nakara is at the end, then this should not happen. Okay? Now let's do some practice here. So it says examine whether natva is applicable and write the forms of the following masculine words in 3-1 and 6-3. Because in 3-1 also, ramena, you see that natvam, that nakara that happens there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch to my camera and make it a little easier for me to write here. And then you can follow along with me. All right, let me pull this up here so you can see what I'm going to write. So the first one in your Sandhi book, it says Rama. Okay, Rama. Now, if I even write this in transliteration, right, it's Rama. Okay, now I see, first question is, Okay, and we're back. And so just continuation, this is part 2 of the Natto lesson. Of course, my battery ran out in the last, so we're just going to continue where we left off. And we're looking at the exercise in the Sandhi book. I'll just show you what it looks like. So in your Sandhi book, it'll look exactly like this in the Natto section. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my camera so you can see what I'm writing. We could do it together. Okay, so the first one example that they give is Rama. And we need to first see if when I want to do it in 3-1 and 6-3, does not take place. So in 3-1, we add the suffix in. Okay, so I am adding Rama plus in. So let me put that there, in. Now, when we're looking at this Natto rule, first we need to see is ra or shakara. So one is ra or shakara. And here it is, right? Now, is it immediately preceding the nakara, or is there some things in between? Here we have some things in between. So is at, ku, or pu intervening? All right, let's see. So at, as we saw before, is all vowels plus hayavara, okay? So we see between these, we see akara. Akara is one of the vowels. Also, that's part of at. So that passes the test. Okay, the next one is makara. Now, is makara in at? No, it's not in at. Is it in ku? Ku is kak. Nope, it is not included in ku. It is included in pu. Pu is pa pa ma, right? Pu is pa pa ba ba ma. So yes, makara is in pu. So that makara, yes, it is checked because it is in pu. This was in at. Next thing, E. E is also one of the vowels. So this E is included in at. So we give it a little check mark, okay? Oh yeah, we already gave it a check mark. All right, so now that, you know, you don't need to have all of atkupu. You can have one, or you can have as many of these as you can have. And as long as only these things and nothing else is present in between, then this nakara will get replaced by nakara. So it becomes rama plus in. Okay, now because of something called guna sandhi, that's akara. Sorry, it should say, let me write that again. Akara plus e becomes a. So then it becomes ramena. Ramena. Let me write it again so you can see a little more clearly. Ramena. So now you see how that nakara become nakara. Now let's do for Ramanam, okay? I have Rama plus, and then 6-3 is Nam, dental nakara, Nam. So this is 6-3. Now here, what I have preceding, I have okay, so I have ra and sha. So number 1, I have ra or sha present. Yes, correct. I have this rakara. Rakara present here. Next, is it preceding just immediately before it? No, but is at ku, and pu. Only these, are they intervening? Let's see. Okay, up this akara, just like we saw, is at, so we can give that a little check mark. This makara, as we saw, is part of pu, so we can give that a check mark. Okay, so between ra and na, all the things are atkupu, right? These two things are atkupu, so therefore this nakas by murdanya nakara, and then we're left with, oh, by the way, right? We also, this akara becomes long. So it becomes rama, which that is also a part of at. So it becomes, so this is at. This is also at. So rama nam. Okay, so first we want to apply that long elam, then it becomes nakara. So rama nam. Okay, because all three of the things between ra and this nakara are all atkupu intervening. So Ramanam. Let's do another example, and then we'll quit for today. If you look in your Sandhi book again, you'll see the next example. Let me show you that. Is, where is it? Okay, here it is. All right, so you see number 2 is Purusha, and then Vishaya, Tarka, Putra, Arjuna. Let's do something a little bit more difficult. Let's do, let's say, we'll do a Shakara example, right? We haven't done a Shakara example. Okay, so let's just pick Vishaya. Okay, number 3. All right, so going back to the camera. All right, so let me pull a new page up. So Vishaya. So let's write it first. Just write it as it is. Vishaya. Let's write it in transliteration. Vishaya. Now I'm adding, first, let me just do 6-3 to make this a little bit less time consuming for us. So Vishaya, and I'm adding nam, which is 6-3. So the first thing that happens is in 6-3, this last akara becomes elongated. So it becomes Vishaya plus nam, which is 6-3. First thing is ra or sha preceding this nakara. Is ra or sha preceding this nakara? Yes. We see it's yeah, so we see it here, right? We see the shakara. So we give it a little check mark, right? That is preceding this nakara. So now we know that this rule might be in play. The second thing we want to look for is at kupu. At kupu. At, right, again, is all the vowels. Ku is all kavarga. So at is all the vowels. Hayavara. Ku is kakagagana. Pu is papababama. And then at kupu, then ang and num. Ang and num we're cutting out of this because that's beyond our scope here, right? Okay. So we see shakara. Now, is yakara part of at? No. Yakara is not a vowel. Wait, is it? Because at is actually all vowels plus ha, ya, va, ra. Oh, I see a yakara here. So this is actually a part of at. So yes, we can give it a check mark. This akara is also part of at. So we give it a check mark. So this between the sha and the na, we've all things that fit in at kupu. So this becomes Vishaya, and this na becomes now nakara. So Vishaya nam. Okay, Vishaya nam in 6-3. So that's why that na is no longer this nakara. It is now transformed itself. Okay, now if we look at the exercises, so this all will kind of follow those same type of rules, the same rule rather. You just need to look for is it ra or sha preceding the nakara. If so, this rule may take place. The next thing you want to see, if it's not immediately preceding, is at ku pu in between the two things. Okay. All right. So now the last thing I want to show you. Actually, maybe let's just stop there. That might be a good conclusion to what we were looking at. So the first question you want to ask yourself is ra or murdanya shakara preceding dento nakara? If so, this rule might take place. Second thing, is it immediately preceding or is something in between? Okay, if immediately preceding, then this rule automatically takes place. Now, is something in between, then you need to see it. Is the things in between at, ku, pu? Oh, this is what I remember. This is what I wanted to show you. Is someone had a question about brahmana. Okay, let me go back to my. So brahmana, if we spell brahmana, this is how it's spelled. Brahmana. Okay, that's how brahmana is spelled. So if I'm adding brahmana plus nam, okay, the first thing is that akara becomes elongated. So it becomes brahmana because of just the rule for 6-3 plus nam. Now someone had a question, is murdanya, does this become murdanya? Let's see. So between then do we have a rakara or shakara? Yes, we have a rakara here. Right? We have a rakara here and we have a nakara. Now in between all of these things, is it at ku pu? Okay. So between the ra and the na, the next thing we have is akara. Akara. So a. Now a is part of at. So that fits. Next thing is hakara. At includes hayavara. So this ha is part of at. You know, it's part of at. This is also part of at. So we're good so far. This makara is part of pu. Pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. So we give it a little check mark. This is part of pu. No, sorry. Yeah. So I was meant to write here is makara is part of pu. So give it a little check mark. Okay, and the next thing is this nakara. Nakara here, is it part of at? A, I, U, R, L, hayavara. No, it's not part of at. Is it part of pu? Pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. No. Is it part of, sorry, is it part of ku? Ka, ka, ga, ga, na. No. So it's not part of at, ku, or pu. So this nakara, actually, even though it's nakara, it is not part of at, ku, pu. And so since that something which is not atkupu is in between this rakara and this nakara, actually, so then nothing, this rule cannot be applied. So finally, we're left with brahmana nam. Brahmana nam. Let me write it in transliteration. That's a lot of letters. but brahmananam. Okay, so the rule does not take place for this nakara when we're adding the 6-3. Okay. Notice how this probably was originally a nakara, and because this ra and everything in between is atkupu. So this might have been originally a nakara, would change to nakara. But for our purpose, we're just saying, does this letter here for the 6-3 change when added? And it does not. Okay, so brahmana is our original pratipadika. When we add it to nakara, it does not become Vardhanya Nakara because this na here is not part of Atkupu. Okay? With that, we'll conclude this tutorial on Natvam. This is the Natvam exercise. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om